Good morning, everybody. Oh, it's always fun when it's Talk Tuesday, and the first participant I see is my husband, fellow educator. Good morning. Good morning, Kenneth. Nice to see you. Lots of familiar names and faces here. We'll get rolling here in just a minute as we get everybody situated. Good morning, Nushette.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing well, doing well. We're settled in, we're back into the routine of school, so things are good.
That's right. Good morning, Latasha. All right. Well, I know we have our speakers here are ready to rock and roll. Good morning, Erica. Nice to see you. All right. Well, as my colleagues and I continue to let folks in, we are going to go ahead and get started. I did want to just mention Kari Sullivan Custer is not able to be with us today. She sends her regrets and said to say hello to everybody. She is so proud of and delighted with all of the work happening across the state when it comes to attendance and engagement. So she's with us here in spirit today, and I'm sure we will all be hearing from her the next time we are together on Talk Tuesday. So I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Caroline Calhoun. I am the producer of Talk Tuesday here at Advance, the Northwest Corner RESC. And if we can go to the next slide, please, Ian. I am joined by my team members, Ian Rodriguez Torrent, who is driving the slides for us, and my colleague, Diane Cassidy, who is doing all back-end logistics. Thank you both for joining us. And of course, we have Jay Brown here from the Bureau of Special Ed at CSDE, who does the really important job of funding this series. So we appreciate that, Jay, and all of your support. Next slide, please. So we are so excited today. We have two presenters for you. We are joined both by Brianna Hennessy from CSDE, who will be sharing her expertise all about EdSite and how to leverage data in your districts. We are also joined by John Wynn from New Haven Public Schools, who will share how New Haven uses and leverages all of that data on the ground. So we look forward to hearing from both of them. And thank you, of course, to all of you for joining us this morning. We know you have busy schedules, but hopefully you have found Talk Tuesday to be a staple, effective, helpful community of practice. And we will go ahead and get into the content for you. So let's go to the next slide. And we wanted to share some highlights and happenings with you around the state. So we have a huge reason to celebrate as a community. Last week, the Performance Office held their annual press event and released all of the Smarter Balanced Assessment data and the attendance data. And for the first time since the Smarter Balanced Assessment began, a decade ago, this was the first year that all student groups showed improvement at once, and that is a really huge deal in English language arts, math, and science. So huge kudos to all of our districts across the state working so hard, because that is not an easy feat to achieve. The second celebration is that for the third straight year, because of all of your hard work, chronic absenteeism fell. So we've gone from a high of over 23% in 21-22. We are down now to 17.2%. So this means in real numbers that over 34,000 of our students across the state were present for school on a regular basis as compared to prior years. So kudos to all of you. That is a tremendous achievement. And as we drop those numbers for chronic absenteeism, now it just becomes even more important and challenging to continue that momentum. And we hope that you will get some concrete ideas throughout this series this year of how to maintain that performance. Let's go to our next slide, please. So we also wanted to give a shout out to the Bureau of Special Ed. Last week, they held their back to school conference, Progress Through Partnerships, on Friday. It was such an inspirational day. We had a wonderful session with Attendance Works Executive Director Hetty Chang. Many of you have seen her speak and know her. Attendance Works is one of CSDE's partners and really the guru go-to nonprofit organization in the country for all things attendance and engagement. We have included Hetty's slides here as a resource for you. She really dove into how to get students who are in special education to feel that sense of belonging and how that plays out with attendance and engagement. Just a logistical note for everybody. My colleague Diane is dropping the link to this slide deck in the chat throughout the session. So unlike in years past, we have access to the deck in real time. So go ahead and access those if you'd like. We also, as usual, will send it out afterwards, but we just wanted to note that for you as well. Next slide, please, Ian. So in case you do not have the link to the Superintendent's Digest, that is there for you, but we wanted to call your attention to something new that was just published in the Digest earlier this week, and that is a new student support series webinar. So CSDE is collaborating with DCF, but essentially there's a new student support series that is really focusing on youth mental and behavioral health. So the kickoff for that series is coming up on September 25th. It's in the morning, it's virtual, and the first session is all about attendance. So improving attendance through connection and care. Kari Sullivan Custer will be moderating the session, and Dr. Elliot Atisha and Emma Herdine, both senior fellows at Attendance Works, will be sharing their expertise. So we encourage you to register for that. Next slide, please. Attendance Works is also offering their final of 4 webinars around attendance awareness campaign content. And they're really focusing in this final session on family engagement being the foundation for attendance and learning. So the registration link for that is listed as well, and that's coming up on September 24th. Next slide, please. The last sort of offering I wanted to highlight for you is that the RESC Alliance has created an MTSS implementation task force, and we will be offering a series of professional learning opportunities really throughout the year, but they are designed to help districts and schools develop and refine all of your systems of support in that MTSS umbrella. So we have a virtual informational session coming up on the 25th, and this is just an opportunity for participants to do a little self-assessment of your current practices, but also for us to share with you what those upcoming sessions are. And this is all evidence-based, evidence-aligned strategies to advance your MTSS implementation. So we've provided that meeting link there for you to register as well. If you can't attend that, we are happy to provide more information. Just reach out to your local RESC and we can give you the details. All right, next slide. So many of you likely subscribe to the Marshall Memo, which is a curated selection of articles summarized by Kim Marshall. She's an educator. It's a paid service, but she does an amazing job of really looking at everything that's come out across K-12 education in the country in any given week and sharing sort of synopses of that content. So I wanted to give a shout out to Christy Zaleta and our Danbury Public Schools system. She was most recently a middle school principal in Danbury, and she has, since this article came out, she has been promoted to the K-12 chief of schools. And this article that appeared in Edutopia in August was all about words of wisdom from veteran principals. And Christy talked about how there's going to be these crazy moments. It's going to feel chaotic, but she was really highlighting how you can't take it personally and be the calm. And I thought that advice was really helpful for all of us as we are going through the chaotic beginning of the school year and trying to be the calm, whether that is for our students, for our colleagues, for our families that we are interfacing with, really everybody in our orbit. So be the calm, and thank you to Christy Zaleta and congratulations to Danbury Public Schools for that. Christy was also named as the Connecticut Middle School Principal of the Year in 2024. So we wanted to highlight a local administrator who made the national stage in the Marshall Memo and in the Edutopia article. So thank you for that. Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. We wanted to remind you all, we have our Connecticut Home Visit Hub LEAP 101 trainings, as always, are happening throughout the year. Nushet Black-Burke is our coordinator of the hub. The next one is coming up tomorrow on September 10th. So even if you are not a district receiving funding through the LEAP grant, everybody is welcome to these trainings. And it really just orients folks to that home visiting philosophy and our cornerstones around flexibility, cultural responsiveness, and family engagement principles. So feel free to sign up for that if you have not done so already. The last slide for me, Ian, is all resources linked for you all. Kari and I like to make sure you have this easily accessible, different resources for you that you might find helpful throughout the year. And with that, I'm going to introduce our first presenter. Next slide, please. Dr. Brianna Hennessy is an associate education consultant at CSDE. She works in the performance office, and she's a member of the EdSite team. Her main responsibilities include maintaining the attendance dashboards, writing research reports using longitudinal data, and preparing data for external requests. And she started as an intern in the performance office back in 2019, but she's been working full-time for CSDE since 2023. She's a graduate of the IBM Teacher Preparation Program at UConn. She was a high school math teacher before returning to UConn for her PhD in research methods, measurement, and evaluation. And Brianna lives in Cromwell with her husband, her 2 kiddos, and her dog. So we are so happy to have you here with us today, Brianna, and I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Caroline. And thank you to everyone for introducing yourselves in the chat. I saw a variety of roles: school nurse, teacher, administrators, counselors, social workers, family engagement specialists, and people are looking to get some ideas or strategies. Ooh, and I see one right now. Can I see our district data somewhere? Absolutely. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And hopefully we can get some ideas and inspiration. Let's actually advance. I think we can advance 2 slides because the next slide is just yeah, there we go. So before we even set the agenda for what I'm going to talk about today, I want to show you this chart. And Caroline had already kind of discussed this a little. It shows the chronic absenteeism rate for all students in blue and for our high needs students in orange. And we see that increase in chronic absenteeism around the pandemic and actually continuing to increase as the pandemic wasn't as present in our lives. I won't say ended. But our final percentages for 2024-25 were 17.2% chronic absenteeism for all students and 24.8% for our high needs students. So as Caroline mentioned, we have a lot more students attending regularly, and we can keep building on that progress. Let's go to the next slide. So my agenda, I have kind of 3 things I want to get to for you folks. First, a brief overview of the EdSite Public and EdSite Secure web pages, the definitions of the attendance metrics, and how to use EdSite to analyze your data. So I did put a link in the chat to get to the EdSite Public attendance page. We're going to do some together, so you can go ahead and pull that up if I start getting a little boring. So thank you. As a reminder, so Connecticut has the 2 portals to facilitate public and secure reporting of data. So the public portal, EdSite Public, contains tables, charts, graphs, and links to other reports. Because this portal is available to everyone, there's suppression of small N counts, so small groups of students, to protect student confidentiality. The EdSite Public attendance dashboard has 1 page for the yearly and monthly attendance data all together. The secure portal allows authorized users access to student level data for students registered to their districts and schools. But when students move from one school district to another, the current district can view all the historic data for that student. On EdSite Secure, attendance is split into 3 reports: monthly attendance, yearly attendance, and the new student alert report. So we can move to the next slide. So what attendance data are available in EdSite? On EdSite Public, everyone can view state, district, and school level attendance data. You can group the data by different student groups. You can view the end of year June accountability data, which comes from the June PSIS collection, and the year-to-date monthly data that comes from the monthly attendance collection. On EdSite Secure, the authorized users can view the district, school, and student level data. They can view charts and graphics for 2 student groups at a time. And as with the public site, the yearly attendance data comes from the June PSIS collection. The monthly attendance data comes from the monthly attendance collection. But secure users can view the data for individual months. So they can view the year-to-date data, but they can also view the individual months. Secure users can view data for their current students, so the students who are actively enrolled in their district, and the reported students, so the students that they reported in their own data collection, even if those students have left the district. So next slide. So what is the difference between average daily attendance, chronic absence, and truancy? Average daily attendance is the total percent of membership days that a student or a group of students is in attendance. A student is chronically absent if they miss 10% or more school days, and the percent of all students who are chronically absent is the chronic absence rate. A student is truant if they have 4 unexcused absences in a month, or 10 unexcused absences during the year. Truancy is only reported as a variable in the June PSIS collection, so we have no sense of truancy rates throughout the year, only at the end of the year. CSDE also does not collect the number of unexcused absences or whether an absence is excused or unexcused. We only know at the end of the year, was that student truant, according to the school's whole record. So note that the reason for the absences does not impact in any way the average daily attendance or the chronic absence. If the student is present and engaged in school activities for at least half the day, then they are present. Otherwise, they are absent. So, if they leave for a doctor's visit, if they're home ill, and that's excused, they're still absent. And the nice thing about this definition is that it gives consistency across all the districts. If a district has a difference in how they collect excused or unexcused reasons or how they record things, in the end, the data that get reported to CSDE are just whether or not the student was present. Okay, so next slide, please. So I put this here for your reference. There's other trainings where I go through this table, but we don't have a lot of time today to go through each example. But some of the main takeaways are that a student can be chronically absent, but not truant. So in this example, a student is chronically absent, but not truant, or vice versa. They could be not chronically absent, but truant. Also, students could have exactly the same attendance pattern. Oh, sorry, that highlight is not very straight. Let me try again. Exactly the same attendance pattern, but have different outcomes in terms of truancy. All right, thanks. Next slide. I want to go through how we calculate the year-to-date average daily attendance and the chronic absence, because this example is kind of nice and it shows how some things can work out a little strange. So I use my name and I use my kids' names too. So this is a fake example. If we have 3 students attend during the month of September, Brianna attended 17 out of 20 days. Average daily attendance is 85%. She's chronically absent in the month of September. Addie attended 20 out of 20 days. Average daily attendance is 100%, not chronically absent. Callum attended 9 out of 10 days. Maybe he enrolled in school late. His attendance is exactly 90%, which is considered chronically absent. And as a note, this is why we don't report September chronic absence rates on EdSite Public, because we get this situation where a kid misses 1 day or 2 days potentially, and so they're chronically absent. And so that can kind of throw the chronic absence rates clock whack. And so we like to wait until we have at least 2 months of data before reporting that data on EdSite Public. Next slide, please. So the average daily attendance for the whole school is the sum of all attendance days divided by the sum of all membership days. So in this case, it's 92%. And the chronic absence rate is the percent of all students who are chronically absent. So in this case, it's 2/3. So, oh, I said that already. Chronic absence rates are not shown on EdSite Public. They are available on EdSite Secure. Next slide, please. So let's add another month of data. In this month, Brianna attended 14 out of 20 days, 70% average daily attendance, chronically absent again in October. Addie attended 19 out of 20 days, not chronically absent. Callum attended every day, not chronically absent. So what we're going to do is we're going to add up the attendance and membership for each student to find the year-to-date values. So next slide, please. So for Brianna, it's 31 out of 40. Definitely chronically absent. Addie is not chronically absent. Callum is not chronically absent. The average daily attendance is now 99 out of 110, or 90%. But the chronic absence rate is only 1/3. And I want to point out this strange thing that I alluded to before. Usually when average daily attendance increases, chronic absence rate decreases. But in this little toy example, in September, the average daily attendance was 92%. So the average daily attendance actually decreased. But the chronic absence rate also decreased. So that happened because Brianna was absent a lot, but Callum, who had been right on the edge, was in attendance more. So he's no longer chronically absent. So this is a reminder that chronic absenteeism is the percent of students missing a lot of schools. The average daily attendance shows how many students have their butts in seats on any given day. So, you know, you'll get kind of different interpretations depending on whether you're viewing the average daily attendance or the chronic absence rate. And people have different preferences, what they like to look at. I tend to like to look at the average daily attendance when I'm looking at small groups, because I think, you know, if you're just looking at a small group of kids, seeing the average daily attendance for that group says more to me than the chronic absence rate, which could be impacted by one kid, you know, being chronically absent or not. Next slide, please. So this, when a student transfers from district to district, we can see some kind of conflicting information. It's not really conflicting, but they can have different year-to-date values depending on whether you're looking at their school, district, or state level data. So basically the state level data is going to include all their attendance history from any school or district they attended. If you're in EdSite Secure, you're going to select current district to view those data, and you only have access to that data for your current students. Your district level data is only going to include data that was submitted by that district. And so select reported district to view those data on EdSite Secure, and school level data adds up all the months of data for the school, and you select reported school to view those data on EdSite Secure. Next slide, please. So I was doing some initial research into, you know, trying to run some predictive models to determine if we could predict who's going to be chronically absent at the end of the year. And based on last year's data and the history of attendance data from kids enrolled last year, the most impactful predictor of whether a student will be chronically absent at the end of the year is the attendance rate from the prior year. And if you don't have end of year data, using the monthly attendance data for the latest month you have is the next best thing. And my initial results actually indicate that kids might be at risk if they're under 93% attendance. So if you're doing some sort of kind of mass intervention, you could look at all your chronically absent students from the prior year, but you might want to include a few more students who have slightly better attendance, but might still be at risk. And that's going to depend on whether, you know, what your capacity for whatever intervention you're doing is. The next most important variable is the grade level of the student. So we see very big differences between the different grade levels, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. The next best predictor is the attendance rate from 2 years ago the overall attendance rate for the school. So we see pretty consistent patterns where schools struggle with attendance as a school. And I think we know that that's true. And then one kind of interesting piece that is if a student's absences are persistent or acute. So did a student miss the same amount each month? That's kind of persistent absences, or did they miss a chunk of school in a few months? So did they get COVID or did they get the flu? And so they were out for a week. Those persistent absences, if the student is also chronically absent, is associated with lower attendance in the following year. So if you're looking at a student's attendance pattern and you're wondering to yourself, like, is the student really at risk of being chronically absent at the end of the year? You could look at their monthly attendance data pattern and see, were they missing a lot of school every month, or was it coming in chunks? And work on programming with that student or family. You can take the next slide, please. So we're gonna try to jump into analyzing your data. I have 3 big questions. Are there groups of students who are more absent than other students? You can work to support those students as a group. Which individual students are having trouble with attendance? You can work to support those students individually. And are there trends that you can anticipate? So try to be proactive. So now's the time, if you didn't get a chance to go to that EdSite public attendance page, you can go ahead and click on that link now. I just threw it in the chat again. CSDE released this public attendance dashboard in the spring of 2024. EdSite did recently get a facelift, but if you have this link bookmarked, it should still work. We see you can go to the next slide, please. Sorry, I'm going too fast. We can see the trends over time on the main page. And what I would like you to do is go to that yearly attendance button. And we can go to the next slide. What I would like to look at first is, so we know that grade is a good predictor of chronic absenteeism. So we can go down to this drop down and try group by grade. And I know this is a little bit problematic because it's going to show all of the grades. And in EdSite Secure, if you have access to EdSite Secure, you can filter to just look at a few grades, but in EdSite Public, because of our suppression rules, you have to view them all together. So take a minute to go to your school or district. If you're looking for a school, you might need to use the district drop down to get to that list of schools. And you may also want to uncheck State of Connecticut so that you're only viewing your chart. So as you're looking, you can post in the chat what grade is most chronically absent in your school or district. If you have some time, you can check some other student groups. What groups have large gaps? And are the groups persisting over time, closing, growing? I'm going to talk at you while you do that because otherwise we'll get bored. I'm noticing here, 12th grade, that's our kind of worst group for attendance. I don't know that anyone would be really surprised, but what we do see is a declining trend in the chronic absence rate for 12th grade. And then what we also could see, and Kari had pointed this out when the data first came out, if we look at this kindergarten, those kindergartners were also at really high risk of chronic absenteeism, but that rate is declining, and it's declining faster than the other groups. We actually have a lot of hope here that the groups of kids who are coming in to school have better attendance patterns at the outset. So that's really excellent. So I'm going to give a few more minutes, or maybe another minute, to hear from the gallery. What grade is the most chronically absent in your school or district? And this would be a good point for questions if anyone has questions too. I know I've kind of steamrolled through here.
And you all are welcome to unmute, raise your hand, add to the conversation, or add to the chat, either way.
Trying to use my wait time. Kindergarten. So mirroring some of the state trends, kindergarten, seniors, kindergarten and seniors, freshmen, grades 11 and 12, kinder. Now, those high school grades definitely as a group in the state are more at risk. And those kindergartners, pre-K. We don't show pre-K data on EdSite, so I wonder if you have your own data from PowerSchool, that can be really helpful too. All right, let's take a minute for grade 8 in a 6-8 school. That's a good point. Other groups having large gaps, alt ed programs. That's definitely something to watch out for. All right, let's move on to the next slide so that I leave enough time for John to talk about New Haven. You can use EdSite Secure data to view individual student data. And I can post the link to EdSite Secure is at the end of this slide. I'm going to put the link here, but I know not everyone has access to it. So I'm not going to go live with or do a live demonstration of that here. But after you've looked at EdSite Public, if you have access to EdSite Secure, you can view those individual student data. So let's take a look. This is the landing page for EdSite Secure. We had some updates recently to EdSite Secure. So now we have things grouped into different tabs, all of our reports grouped into different tabs. Used to show all of the reports on one page. So I think people like this because if you're on a small screen, you can navigate it better. You can see the whole thing. Lucky for us, attendance is smack on the first page. And we even have this new attendance alert. So right in your face on login, you see how many of your current students have a history of poor attendance. And that history is going to come from any district. If they are transfer students in, they're going to be included in this alert summary here. The data on this page, this alert summary, are only based on the monthly data. So it's not the most up-to-date right now because the most up-to-date right now is the June PSIS, which is the yearly data. But as soon as we get September data loaded into EdSite, this will update with EdSite, with September data. So there's 3 reports, the monthly, the yearly, and the attendance alert. The monthly and yearly pages are great for getting charts and visuals, and the attendance alert list is new, but it allows you to get a quick list of exactly which students are chronically absent or at risk of being chronically absent. So let's go to the next slide. You can find the individual students from any of the 3 pages. And I said this already, so we can do the next slide. So let's go over to that yearly attendance report and click on View Data. And make sure you're on current district. You can filter to just the year 2024-25. You could filter to chronic absent status to get only the kids who are chronically absent in 2025, or you can click on average daily attendance to sort the table by average daily attendance. So I can't remember if you click on it first, if it'll sort large to small or small to large, but if you click on it again, it'll do the other way. So you can either view who has the best attendance in your school, which is usually 100% for at least one kid, or who has the worst attendance in your school. So I'm not going to have you post in the chat because this is all secure data, and I'll just throw out a reminder also that if you have EdSite Secure, just be very, very careful. Do not leave the page open, log out, don't share your login information. This is student level data. It is not to be shared. So let's go to the next slide. The last question was, are there trends in the monthly data? So Kari had actually asked me to share this too, and I was like, this is a great idea. Chronic absenteeism follows a predictable seasonal pattern. It rises in the winter months and eases in the spring. And we know that part of that is because of all the great work you folks are doing in district to react to that rise in attendance and to intervene with students who are looking like they're going to be chronically absent. Last year, 2024-25, rates peaked in February at 20.2%, but then started to decline steadily through June. So again, I want to emphasize, maybe part of it is seasonal illness, but I'm sure part of it is also people intervening. So I don't think we should get complacent in the spring. If we want to continue this pattern where things get better in the spring, we need to continue like past practices of, intervening. So this pattern happens almost every year. It happens, the peak happens in different months each year, but it's generally in the winter. So are there trends in your school? You can use the monthly attendance data charts to see, are there trends in your school? Is there a big, lots of absenteeism, big spike in absenteeism in January or December? And think about what you can do to proactively message with families about healthy hygiene habits or not taking vacations and how important school is and how much we miss our kids when they're not in school. You can go to the next slide, please. So here's some extra resources and links. Half of these were already on the slide that Caroline shared. Just links to the public attendance page. The behind the numbers link is it's like an hour-long presentation, so not the speed run of what I just did here. It really goes in depth into all the ways everything is calculated. So if you want more detail on how things are calculated, you can go ahead and watch that, or you can feel free to contact me. I'm happy to talk with you. How do you find your login information? So for EdSite Secure, your access is determined by your district security person. Oh, sorry, this was a direct message to me, so not everyone saw that in the chat. So I can reach out to you and talk to you individually. All right. Next, final slide. Yeah, so here's my contact information if you want to reach out to me, and I will pass it back to Caroline to introduce the next speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brianna. And I think that point about how to access EdSite Secure actually is one that many people wonder, and that is a district level decision. So folks who are in charge of that decision making would be the point people to whom you all need to reach out and figure out if you are essentially permitted access to that student level data. And to follow up on Brianna's comment about making sure you aren't sharing this data, that is sort of with the caveat that folks who sit on your district level attendance teams, folks who sit on your school level attendance teams, of course, have access to this. And that is something that hopefully you all are tracking routinely, more than monthly, what we access on EdSite, but at the local level, being able to access that data daily or weekly is what helps us be most preventative as we tackle bringing down our numbers and this continuous cycle of support for our buildings and families. So thank you so much, Brianna. That was a wealth of information and expertise. I know that some folks think, oh, I already know how to use EdSite, but the state is doing such a beautiful job of updating it continuously with new features, and that alert system that you described, I think is super helpful for districts to be able to go and get that snapshot really easily and quickly right on that front page on EdSite Public. So really appreciate all of your expertise, Brianna. And the only thing I also wanted to mention for folks is that this is recorded. You can go back and look at this in, more slowly and play around with the site if you're not familiar with it, and follow Brianna's directions that way so that you can really make this habitual and you're able to use the site really easily. So thank you again, and we are going to go to the next slide and introduce our next speaker. So we are so happy to have John Wynn joining us today from New Haven Public Schools. John serves as New Haven's Supervisor of Research, Assessment, and Evaluation, and really oversees this whole department in New Haven. He oversees the administration of district-wide assessments. He leads the district's educator evaluation process, and he's also involved in managing educational research, providing technical assistance to staff on all things data, and presenting findings to various stakeholders to inform their decisions and to improve instructional practice. So prior to this position, John was an assistant principal at James Hillhouse High School and the Cooperative Arts and Humanities in New Haven for 13 years. He was also a social studies teacher at Hillhouse and T.C. Williams High School for 11 years. John is a graduate of the University of Connecticut IBM Teacher Prep Program, and he lives in New Haven with his wife and his 2 children. So welcome, John, and we look forward to hearing all about how you use your data in New Haven Public Schools.
Yes, thank you. And before I jump there, I just want to share some similarities I have with Brianna. I was also an intern at the Connecticut State Department of Education in the 1900s as well, with Jack Hasegawa, who was amazing, and Bill Howe. I interned them with the summer, and then I also did a year with Dan Gregg as a social studies head, because I was a social studies teacher. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to my 6-year teacher, Dr. Shawana Tucker, who was fantastic in training me. But I needed the best teachers because I'm probably not as smart as Brianna and all the EdSite people, because of the fact that there's so much data on EdSite. And I look at my role as a supervisor as more like the data translator. So I'm trying to break down all the information that you have at EdSite and make it a little bit more understandable for you. So next slide. And the key thing here that I just want to show you, my agenda more or less is showing ways that New Haven Public School uses EdSite dashboards. And we really use it through the lens of New Haven's strategic operating plan. Next slide. And this slide, if you click it again, yeah, there you go. Okay, so I think there's animation. I wasn't quite sure if it was coming on or not. Our strategic operating plan is under the direction of our great superintendent, Dr. Negron, along with Assistant Superintendent Red Hannons and Dr. Joseph Lumpkin for school climate. And one of our focuses with school climate was our chronic absenteeism rate by 2029 to be at 20%. And from now to 2029, we want to see a drop by 3%. So the question then becomes, well, how do we go about doing this? What kind of steps can we use to do this? Next slide. And so we use EdSite. And with EdSite, we're looking at the yearly attendance. And again, there's so much information there. So what I want to do is take the information that we have and make it more understandable for our staff. Next slide. So one of the slides that we have here is the end of the year. If you click it again, I think you'll see the stars. So I plop in the end of the year results, and we have a specific target for each school. Each individual school has a chronic absentee target. And we use that with our district goal of, for this upcoming year is 30%. Last year was 33%. And in order to get that, certain schools, we looked at their last year chronic absenteeism rate, and then we had this as their focus. All right, so we broke it down. This goes out every 10 days, this chronic absenteeism report by school. And if you look at this first part right in here, this goes the overall chronic absenteeism rate. So we do the comparison of the last time we pulled it, which is 10/16. This is from last year. And then this report was pulled on 10/30. So we did the difference from the last time to this time. And then we also looked at the number of chronic absenteeism rate by SPED students, and then by MLs. Historically, our ML students do attend school more than our general population and SPED. And then the final thing is, well, every 10 days, the school will find out if they're on track to meet their end of the year goal. And this is how we calculate that too. And this gets sent out to every principal every 10 days, as I said before. Next slide. All right, let me erase my drawings. All right, so here is our monthly chronic absenteeism rate by year. All right, and the superintendent presents this to our school principals every month, usually at the first Wednesday of every month. And if you see here, for May and for June, I have it as projections because when we present at the beginning of the month, it's not certified yet. So we like to use the certified Ed Site numbers to figure out where we are for the year. And this is for last year, so we can track where we were. And so all of our school leaders and district leaders can see where we are and where we're projected, and how that previous slide of the chronic absenteeism rate, everyone's rate will influence these results that we have here. Okay, next slide. And then here is our daily attendance tracker by school that gets sent out to to our district leaders every day at about 2 o'clock. And what we have here is our current day, which was yesterday. We have that, and then this final column compares it to this day right in here. And they can see where they are for daily attendance rate for the school, and then the differences in the day as well. And what we like to do then is we have our district rate in here, and we like to compare it to last year. Now, the difference is we don't use the actual 9/5/2024. We do, if this was a Friday, we go Friday to Friday. So the first Friday in September, we went that Friday because we realized that comparing a Friday to a Monday or a Thursday is different than comparing a Friday to Friday. So in this case, that's what we want to do. And then this will show the differences right in here. And this gets sent out to our district leaders every day about 2. Next slide. Oh, let me clear this. So we use PowerSchool. And when we use PowerSchool, one of the reports I like a lot is the enterprise reports. And the reason why this is really good with enterprise reports is that whenever a student moves to another school, you don't have to create another report. In this case, the report updates. So what we do is these last 4 columns here update daily. And then these 3 columns right in here is what I take from EdSite and I plop them in. I import it in at the end of each year, and then we create it. So when anyone is trying to figure out where their student stands for the year, they will get not only how many absences they have, so this is from the other day, and the percent, but they also get the last 3 years that they have as well. So this is a way for them to say, all right, so this student here, 83%, they're on the same track. Maybe we should focus some interventions on him immediately. So this is what we have right away. And the nice thing is with enterprise reports is not only do you have updates with attendance, but you also have it with enrollment. And many staff members, they sort of want the spreadsheets to be grouped together because in many cases, they may be able to pull, let's say 24, 25 end of the year daily attendance by themselves, but they don't know how to group it with this year's attendance, right? So what we do is we try to combine the spreadsheets for them. So they're not trying to spend more time merging the data and with the data collection. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for all staff to look at the attendance rate and the chronic absentee rate of the students. Next slide. Oh, let me clear it again. All right, so we sort of copy the state's individual student tracker on this one. And again, we don't want to have the staff members merging the data itself. Can you click it one more time? I think you'll see the star. Okay. Yeah, there you go. So in this one, this is the EdSite data that I have here with the attendance, right? So I have that, it gets plopped in, that's the populated one. And then what we do here is what I wanted to do was add the reading data, which is right in here. And then the Read 180, any recommendations, as well as the math data, which is right in here. And in addition, the ML data. And then we have the suspensions, and then you have the previous school and enrollment change. So the reason why this is why we have it here is this came out in June, right? So some of the schools, in particular with the high schools, they can find out what their students, who their students are for next year in June. And then they can look at this and we're like, well, they're coming from our Edgewood Magnet School, and this is what their data is looking at beforehand, and this is what their attendance is beforehand. So they can do preparations before the rollover in July. And then come July, August, and September, they now have this in their student tracker. But we have a future individual student tracker, and then we have this student tracker as well for PowerSchool too. So all this stuff comes in together, and we merge it for the building leaders. Next slide. And this one, I just want to look at the EL assessments. We have this for math as well, but for this one, we wanted to take our NWA data and DIBELS data and just put it into one column, fall, winter, spring, so you can see it on one spreadsheet. Because I was telling you before, it's like everyone gets it in the fall, they get it in the winter, and they get it in the spring, but they have a hard time merging it all together. So in this case, we put winter, or fall, winter, spring. Then we have the test percentile. Then we have the achievement quintile, the Lexile score, and then this is where we go with EdSite, is the performance level. So this is, we get their data from SBA ELA, so they can see how well the student performed after a full year of these NWA assessments. So they can see that, and then as incoming ninth graders, the schools can see this too, and then what school they came from as well. So next slide. I think the star will come up, and you'll see that. That's where I get it from. And then finally, this is my personal favorite slide. And this is the data nerd in me in this one. And the reason why I like this slide the most is that we actually had an activity from the School Turnaround Alliance grant where they wanted to look at the finances. And one of the data dashboards they wanted us to look at EdSite was the resource allocation review. And I noticed with that, while it was great with data, it was really hard to understand it because there's the bubbles are on top of each other. So I recreated it myself, and then I used it for other things. So in this case, what I wanted to do was I wanted to compare the chronic absenteeism rate versus the school climate results. And what the school climate results is the average of the teacher and student survey. And then I use the chronic absenteeism rate average from EdSite, and I put it for each school, and then we plotted them. So for this case, we have the high chronic absenteeism rate, and then low school climate, low chronic absenteeism rate, low climate, low chronic absenteeism rate, and then strong climate, high chronic absenteeism rate, and strong climate. And the interesting part here, if you had to if you don't have that much resource and you need to focus on a certain amount of schools, I would focus on these schools right in here, because they have strong climate and they're workable students and staff. So, and you just want to bring them over the average right in here of the chronic absenteeism rate for the district. So this area right in here is if you're short on target, if you want to look at the whole district, this is a nice way to look at the whole district, in particular when you're comparing two different rates that we're using from EdSite with the chronic absenteeism rate, and in this case, our own internal school climate data. So these are some of the slides that we have. I did about 10 slides, just quick for you to understand. If you have any questions, please let me know. And so again, I'll clear that so you can read everything.
That's right. Let's go back to that last slide that John just showed, and let's give folks a moment to kind of digest all of this amazing information. And John, I don't know your comment at the beginning that you might not be as smart as Brianna. I think not. I think you both are in this amazing strata of data minds that work brilliantly. And when I look at this slide, I really think about it being a stroke of genius to merge these two sets of data in order to sort of prioritize which students and which school buildings might feel most reachable from that 10,000-foot view as you are prioritizing our finite resources of time and money and energy amongst the folks doing this work on the ground. So really kudos to you for the work you're doing in New Haven. I noticed that you didn't actually share the improvement from the district level from last year. Would you like to take a moment to share the results and how you all have been doing? Because everything that you just shared really came through in the numbers that you all were able to post at the end of last year. So I'm going to turn it back to you, John, just to share that for a moment.
Yeah, well, so those results, those are listed on the district monthly reports. So if you saw in June, I don't know what slide that was. That might have been slide 40. If you go back, slide 40. Yeah, there it is. Oh, this one right here. So this end of the year, so we were in 2021, 2022, we were at 58% in chronic absenteeism rate. And this past year, since this was projection, the state had us at 32.1, so not bad for a projection. So we're at 32.1, so we dropped from 58.1% to 32.1%. So a 26% drop, which is pretty fantastic. And again, under the great direction of Dr. Joseph Lumpkin, our superintendent, Dr. Negron, and Assistant Superintendent Red Hannon. So they've been incredible leaders in this. I just provide them the data, and they run with everything, and they set the interventions, and I'm pleased to be a member of the team. Said before, I live in New Haven. My wife teaches in New Haven. My 2 kids go to the schools in New Haven. So we are definitely invested in the direction of New Haven, and we do our best to support where we can. But the overall, we've made great strides. So from last year, we're at 36.6, and we're going to 32.4. And our goal this year is 29%, 29.9.
Thank you so much, John. I just wanted to note too, I mean, what an amazing decrease over the past several years, but even just in the past year alone, New Haven was looking at over a 5 percentage point decrease in their chronic absenteeism rate, which is really difficult to achieve. And it speaks to the all hands on deck approach that the district has taken. I worked very closely with Dr. Gemma Joseph Lumpkin, John, and the entirety of their district attendance team and leadership over the past 2 years. We did professional development, I think, with over 400 folks across the district. And it really shows the priority, and going back to their strategic operating plan, the emphasis they put on bringing these numbers down and the collective responsibility and efforts that went into that. And it's paying off. And so thinking about all of the work you all have been doing and the granular daily data analysis that is being done to support these efforts and how it's all sent out to your teams routinely, I think is such a game changer. So really appreciate you sharing what you all are doing. And I hope that for folks on the call, this is helpful as you think about what might be possible in your districts as well. And I did see a question in the chat about digging in more to how to best leverage PowerSchool capabilities in your district, because not everybody has a John at their district, and maybe not even at the school levels, right? It's really difficult sometimes when you are shorter staffed to figure out how to capitalize on these tools at your disposal. So we'll think about for sure on our back end how to get more in front of you about those PowerSchool opportunities and things like the enterprise report you were referencing, John. So we just have a couple minutes left. If anybody has questions for John or Brianna, now is the time. Feel free to raise your hand, unmute, add to the chat. We can probably get through a question or two. I just have this final reminder slide on here, but feel free to jump in while you have these 2 experts in front of you. All right. We will be sharing all of this out so you all can access this information. I know both John and Brianna have shared their contact information, so feel free to reach out to them directly. And we so appreciate you joining us today. Next time we'll be together is September 23rd. We have a wonderful discussion on tap for you about meeting foundations and facilitation with Dr. Erin Dunn, who is out of EastCon. She's a senior educational and behavioral consultant. She'll be joined by a district as well, and really thinking about the power of your meeting agendas and facilitation to move the needle on this important work. So thank you everybody for being here. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you on the 23rd. Take care.